Learn why it's better to be a student than a CEO, and why World War II was just a major rut, and explore the answer to life's biggest problem. Welcome to No Bow Tie, where we conquer emptiness and frustration, discover our uniqueness, and live with unrelenting joy. I'm John No Bow Tie Svoboda, author and musician. Today, we're going to conclude the three-part series on one of life's biggest problems, and that is getting out of a rut. Be sure to subscribe. In the previous episode, I talked about a rut that I got into where I had a dream job that I had wanted this job all of my life. And I started doing it after a period of time, after 40 years. I really got despondent. I got the darkness in this rut. I was still doing the same thing I had dreamed of at one time, and just gave all of my life, dedicated all of my hours to doing, to come up empty. When you get in a rut, some of the most painful ones can be in a family, in a relationship, or with a career like I've experienced, where you've put all of your life into it to come up feeling empty-handed, but yet you're working continuously. Chances are good you're reaching goals, and you get an empty feeling when you reach them, because that's the only thing motivating you. And if it's in a relationship, there's a sense of obligation. It is a frame of mind. Now, sometimes you do need to get rid of that job or change the relationship or move from the location that you're in. Most of the time, it's a frame of mind that needs to change. And we're going to talk about that in effective ways. There's going to be three things that you can do in any situation to get yourself out of your rut. This episode is all about taking action, the things you can actually do. You know that you're in it. And sometimes it is hard to figure out how to get out of it, because you're the one thinking that you're in a rut, and it's hard to process to actually renew your life when you're the one living it. But the very first thing you can do is love. Now, I know that statement seems like a sugar-coated bunch of crap to keep you from taking action, but it's true. Think about what you loved about your job or the relationship in the beginning. There was a certain amount of self-love. You were using what's in you to produce getting back, and you enjoyed that reciprocation and that cycle. One of the greatest aspects of being in a rut is you start to focus only on what you're giving. You're working and you're giving, but you're focusing more on what to get out of it. What is the reward? Because the reward feels good. It stacks up, and you want more of that. When that becomes the trail, it becomes very imbalanced. You wake up and you're thinking in terms of reaching your goals instead of contributing your best. You're thinking of what you can get from your workers instead of how you can love everybody that you meet. When you choose to love, and again, it's yourself, the people around you, it can be the weather, it can be the whole world, but when you choose to love, your whole body and mind chemistry changes. Your neurochemistry will line up and favor your future more than any other way. Examples abound, and in your life where you chose love and you got a huge sense of relief. It didn't change your job, but it changed how you see your job. It didn't change the relationship or even the argument that you're in, but it did change how you saw that. And you got a calming effect, and you started to see what you could give to the situation that may help, instead of who's wrong and judging and trying to, just focusing on the abrasion and why that abrasion is there. You started thinking about solutions, what you're willing to sacrifice to make things better. Are there some things in your job, your relationship, or your location that you can sacrifice, that you once did, that will help you get out of that rut? Chances are good there are several things that you can do starting right now. Start small, but start now. The second thing that I want you to focus on to get out of your rut And this is another one that is a seemingly passive statement that you can't apply, but that is to follow your conscience. Now, it feels empty to do that because, yes, we all agree you should follow your conscience. You should know right from wrong and act on that. But to do it every day when you're not in the mood for it, that's a harder thing to do. But let me give you a story of two people in history. One followed their conscience, the other did not. I'm not going to give them names because I think they will reveal themselves, as the first one basically started or was the main subject of a book called the New Testament. The second one was the main subject of an event called World War II. The first one, he followed his conscience and he knew that he was to love others and to give and to show them the way to a better life, a way to transcend the problems that they were facing, a way to look into themselves and find peace and to connect with others, to be compassionate and to help, to give more than get. The second one in our story, he was giving to his culture, but he was very select on the benefits that he would get. He would get power. And in that power, he would control right down to the type of people who were allowed to be in that culture, a very select group. He did not follow his conscience. As a matter of fact, when you don't follow your conscience, it gets easier not to. Anybody who's been addicted to drugs or has had problems with smoking and alcohol knows that the more you do it, the easier it is to dismiss your conscience. Even in forms of abuse, you can excuse yourself from it, unless, of course, you get caught. It's amazing how many people follow their conscience once they're caught in the act, or they have a big problem with it where they're forced to go to rehab. At that point, the conscience kicks in, and we all wish at that point that we would have followed it all along. Now, in our story of our two characters, we know how it turned out. One, his story ended as soon as his life ended. There was a very small amount of people that carried on that legend and that thrust of power. The other one, the first one, that following continued to grow and grow until it is one of the most populated forms of belief on our planet today. I had a friend who became a multi-millionaire. He runs a business in Kansas City, Missouri. He's a multi-millionaire, has every material thing he wants, and he has a lot of power. In getting to know him quite well, in conversations, I would hear him use his power and examples that berated and belittled the people that he was with, to the point that he ended up having several affairs outside of his marriage. He was embezzling money to gain. He was finding ways in taxes to not be so honest and benefit from skipping out on it, paying people in power to excuse the truth of his situation. And it built up so much that he had a breakdown, and all he wanted was to just become an average citizen again. He wanted to become a school teacher so that he could give without concerning of the greed. And over a period of time, he did not become the school teacher, but over the period of time, through counseling and a lot of facing himself, he was able to take that ego down and get out of the power rut that he was in. The only satisfaction he was getting was from the power that he had through his money. He got out of that, mended his marriage, has a great relationship with his kids, and has continued the business. But now the sense of value in the business pays attention to the workers and the customers first, and the product is second. He's willing to sacrifice the product in order to serve those groups of people. When I see him now, he is full of step one, that is love. And he exudes self-respect. And it is absolute joy and a great lesson in life to see him go through that and have such a calm spirit in his eyes. Learn from that before you have to. And the third one, we've already talked about, but we're going to get more specific, and that is to take the selfish edge out of the equation. Taking the selfish edge out means you're not going to work just for profit. How many of you go to work to pay the bills? It sounds logical, and it is logical, but it is not heartfelt. It doesn't involve your true essence. How many of us go to work so that we can contribute and get to know ourselves? And you might say, well, I'm not allowed to do that at work. You might have the wrong job. If you are in a situation where you're not allowed to express your talents, when you're allowed to express your talents and your involvement, your opinion then will be valued. They will come to you. There's a story of a guy he was in a business. I got this from the 7 Habits book by Stephen Covey. He was a bottom ranker. He was just a line worker. And he would show up to the meetings, and he had a skill that everybody else didn't use, and that was to listen. And at one of the meetings, the CEO said, does anybody else have any questions or comments? And he very humbly raised his hand, and he made a comment toward one of the strategies that he thought there was a missing link. The CEO took note of that. At the next meeting, he raised his hand again after listening, and again the CEO agreed. After a turn of events, the CEO at a meeting stopped and said, Joe, what is your opinion? And that was because Joe employed the listening skill. And he sat back and he wasn't interested in what he was getting. He was wanting to know how he could give more to the solutions of the situation. This will get you out of your rut. Take time to be a student. Take time to learn again. Go in to your job and study what might be better. Listen to other people. You do have time to listen to other people and get their opinions about your work, get their opinions about their situation. Become a student of life. You will renew yourself. This is one of the best ways to get out of rut. And again, sometimes we have to change our situation, but often people make the mistake of changing their situation and it seems new and they've done the right thing, and then they find themselves back in the rut. The majority of the time, the shine wears off and they find themselves back in another rut because they didn't volunteer to become a student of life, a student of their job, a student in their family. You don't always have to lead. And one of the best things a leader can do is listen. Before I go, let's summarize the 3 things that are most effective because they are. And I would say, do these, then decide if you should have. They will be effective. The first one is choose to love as much as you can. That is a muscle that you want to strengthen, and it will get easier to use it. The second one, follow your conscience. That is one that is most overlooked while we're staring at our phones and scrolling. Follow your conscience. You know right from wrong. And the last one, take the selfish edge out of the equation. Be willing to give, be willing to sacrifice again, and become that student of life. Okay, so before I go, be sure to subscribe. Go to nobowtie.com/life and get on the newsletter and be the first to get the next episode, which is going to address things in your life particularly. We're going to apply, after you get out of that rut, how to use your talents and inspiration to rise above and transcend anything that you have experienced in life. Now, I'm going to leave you with another no bow tie musical example, taking the bow tie out of formality with another classical composition. Enjoy.